Okay, and here is the last. This is the last two videos, so a couple short ones. These are the bonus videos, and these are really good also. So let's get started with no's and maybes.
You got some people who are not doing it any longer at all. They signed up in the business. They told you, I'm going to be your next superstar. They told you, I'll be at the meeting next week. They told you, I'll have 10 people at my house next week. And what happened to them? WITSEC. You know where WITSEC is? It's a Witness Protection Program. We, in network marketing, obviously attract a lot of criminals. And one of the reasons they must get involved in what we're doing is because the feds are negotiating with them to roll over on their bosses. And right after they get in our companies, the timing's just bad, and the feds just say, oh, now it's time to go into WITSEC. And they don't call us back, and they don't answer their phone. They just vanish, right? So, those are actually the people that are telling us no. And then we have the people in the middle. These are the people you want to avoid like the plague. These are the people who what they say is yes, but what they do is not no. I mean, I actually love people that are in WITSEC. I love the people that don't answer the phone, don't call me back. Because what are they saying? I'm out. No. They won't kill you. The ones that will kill you are the ones who say, you know what, we have semifinal soccer games this weekend, and I'm the assistant to the assistant to the assistant coach. And as soon as those are over, I'm telling you what, I'm so excited about this that I'm engaging. I got 20 people coming to my house. You say, well, when exactly are the soccer games over? Well, next weekend. It's the finals. What day next weekend? Saturday. Did you call them on Sunday and say, hey, you ready to get started? I am so fired up about this. I mean, I am working on getting that list together. Did you get that list together? I'm working on it. I'm working on getting the list together. Well, are you going to come to the meeting Tuesday? I'm going to really try to come to the meeting. I'm going to try to come to the meeting. If you're like most networkers, here's what you do. You are so desperate for a new distributor that even though you hear all the red flags, all the maybes, all the I'm working on it, all the, as long as the creek don't rise and hell doesn't freeze over, I'll be there. I'm going to try my very best to be at the meeting. Are they coming? Those are the maybes, and they will suck the life right out of your dreams. So listen for the people, which are about 90% of the population, that do not have the internal fortitude to say yes and mean it. They have no relationship with their word. If you ask them to define integrity, they could not. Doesn't mean they're not ethical people. It just means they don't have any powerful relationship with their word. It is an epidemic social disease. People say yes all the time. I'll try the product. I'll be at the meeting. I'll call people. I'll be on the webinar. I'll do this. I'll do that. and they no more intend to honor that promise than the man on the moon. Their relationship with their word is, you know what, in the moment that I'm saying this, it sounds like a good idea. You know, the meeting, we're having a meeting 3 weekends from now on Saturday. Will you come to the meeting? Yeah, sure, I'll come. Sounds like a good idea. That's their orientation to their word. And the way they live for the next 3 weeks until that Saturday meeting is, I'm going to the meeting as long as I don't get a better offer. And the better offer might be their kids, might be their spouse, might be work, might be television, might be hockey game, it might be fishing, it might be watching TV. Come Saturday morning at 8 o'clock when they're supposed to go to the meeting, and what they're visualizing is, I don't go to a meeting with a whole bunch of people I don't know when I could sit right here and watch hockey on TV. That sounds like a better idea at the time. That's how most people hold their word. Your job to be a survivor and a prosper in network marketing is to take the maybes and drive them as quickly as possible to either end of the spectrum. In fact, it's perfectly wonderful to take them, almost all of them, and drive them right to no. And what that might sound like is, you know what, Mary? It doesn't actually sound to me like now is a good time for you to honor your word. Mary will say, what did I get myself into? And she'll go scurrying off somewhere that's more comfortable to be. The maybes will suck the life out of you.
And the last one, Richard's story.
Network marketing for me, a huge gift. When I first got introduced, I was 22, kind of have an Adam Green story a little bit. I was 22 years old. I was working in a chicken processing plant in Central California. And that was actually a good job for a 22-year-old California kid that averaged a D- in high school. So college was not an option for me. It was not that I was stupid. I didn't, I didn't have to be held back or anything like that. I just didn't like school. I didn't like anything in school they taught me because I just didn't get it. I didn't understand what does this have to do with me and what I want to do in life, with the exception of one class, taxidermy. That made perfect sense to me. What am I supposed to do with these animals after I shoot them? Taxidermy, stuff them and put them on your wall. I don't do that anymore, but it made sense to me back then. So, when you barely get out of high school, college is not an option in Central California, you're going to work for ag of some sort. It's an ag state in Central California. A lot of ag up here, there's a lot of oil up here. It'd be kind of like, where are you going to go to work if you barely get out of high school and you don't have college? Well, in Central California, one of the places you're going to go is Foster Farms. You got Foster Farms chicken up here? Cool. So, some of that stuff they freeze. And if you freeze chicken, it can last indefinitely, right? So it's actually possible that you have Foster Farms chicken in your freezer that I cut up in 1975 or 1976. It's possible. So, I wasn't a kid without ambition, even though I didn't like school. I had ambition. I wanted to do well. I wanted to matter. You'll hear me say that a lot this afternoon. I wanted to matter. Even in the chicken plant, I wanted to matter. So whatever they told me to do, I just, went about doing it as best I could. And I actually didn't know what vision was back then, but I got a vision working in the chicken plant of, I'm gonna run this small production line, and I'm gonna run these, and I'm gonna work my way up through the chicken plant. And after 4 years, I actually had a vision of being there for the next 36 years. 40 years is how long you had to work at the chicken plant to have a prayer of retirement. Just a prayer, which means I would have just retired from the chicken plant a couple of years ago. Now, some people say, oh, that'd be so horrible, what a bad career, and, jobs are not good. But I got to tell you, I actually loved it. Do any of you love your job? A few people? I loved it. I loved the people that were there. I had like a career path. it's not that I love chickens. I love the challenge of doing something I'd never done before, and I actually was pretty good at it. And, I could cut chickens on the production line so well that the guy next to me or the gal next to me, this was back in the 70s, I could do my part and her part while she went and had a smoke break. And she got so good at it, she could do them, so I could go take a smoke break. I loved that place. But 4 years into my career there, they came down from the top a policy that said you cannot advance any further at Foster Farms without a 4-year degree. Big corporation. Foster Farms is the largest single poultry processing plant in the world. Private company, billions and billions and billions of dollars. Huge company. So from the office across the street, admin, comes this policy: you got to have a 4-year college education. Lesson: if my sponsor had prospected me before that policy came down, so I love working at the chicken plant. I've been there 4 years. I got really the whole thing mapped out. The guy who ran the chicken plant had a master's degree in poultry husbandry. That's a little freaky. But I was like spinning the wheels, but okay, I'm not getting any master's degree in poultry husbandry, but someday I'm going to run this place. Because the guy who ran it, he had a company car. I had an old two-tone pickup, blue and rust. He had a company car. I wanted a company car. I wanted to run the place. So, I was engaged. And it doesn't matter if you're engaged in a job or you're engaged in your family, or maybe you're engaged in, you're like learning how to knit, or you're learning how to skydive, or you're learning how to fly a plane, or you're learning how to play soccer or something. When people are engaged, when they have their life kind of figured out, they're not as open to misdirection. Does that make sense? So if my sponsor would have come by during that part of the 4 years and said to me, hey, how'd you like to sell a gasoline additive to all of your friends and relatives? What do you think I would have said? No. Not just no, what? Heck no. And I did. He actually did prospect me before this policy came down. He called me up. He said, hey, Brooke, he was a high school buddy. He's actually the same guy that got me the job at the chicken plant. He got me the job at the chicken plant, and then he quit. He called me up and he said, hey, Brooke, I want you to come down to this meeting tonight. Now, in the chicken plant world, we don't go to public meetings. We don't put on suits and go downtown to hotels and go to public meetings with people we don't know. We just don't do that. Does that make sense? Do you think you know some people who don't do that on a regular basis? So do you think you know some people who don't, hey, why don't you, what do you think about coming over and meeting a bunch of my friends on Wednesday night at the house, and we'll have cookies and we'll teach, health class? Do you think you have some friends that they don't do that kind of stuff? Well, I didn't go to meetings. I didn't do that kind of stuff, so I told him no. He called me back. He said, hey, make a lot of money, blah, blah. He was very assertive. He was very much dogmatic. He was the anti of this philosophy. He was, you need to do this, your job's no good, you know, like this, just telling me what I needed to do. So, of course, I resisted. So I blew him off. And then this policy comes down. Policy comes down. I'm still not thinking about he and his gas additive and network marketing, but a few weeks later, I just happened to drive by his house. Now, this is another net. There's a couple lessons in here. So the first one is people may not be open in the moment that you ask them, and it's not because they don't want better health or they don't want more money. It's not even because they wouldn't be open to being a distributor in your group. It's just because they can't see it. They don't have the bandwidth. Whether it's their kids or their spouse or their job or their own personal health or their parents. How many of you got parents? Those are responsibilities for you now. People just don't have the bandwidth to even process what you're saying. Now, have you ever had a prospect say that to you? Have you ever had a prospect say, I hear what you're saying, but you know, really, based on what's going on with the kids and what's going on with my husband and my own personal health and my parents, and I'm having to take care of them, and I just enrolled in skydiving school, I don't have the bandwidth to process your proposal. You ever had a prospect say that to you? No, what do they say? I don't have time. Do they have time? Well, they do have time if they want to have time. That's their way of saying, I can't even process it. I don't have time, I don't have the money, I don't want to do that kind of thing. Like that, they just push you away. So I go by Steve's house, he's my sponsor, and just happen to drop by and say, hey, how you doing? Lesson number 2. Prior to this, if I would have encountered Steve, my sponsor, he would have been barefoot, probably no shirt on, hair down to his shoulders, cut off jeans, remember those where they're all frayed? And he was now, after the chicken business, he was a part-time pharmaceutical rep, independent contractor. 1970s, part-time, independent contractor, pharmaceutical rep. So he didn't have a lot of credibility with me because I was a pretty straight-laced guy. So I walk into Steve's house 3 weeks later. Steve's hair's cut to here. Steve's wearing a 3-piece suit. Steve's celebrating his first commission check. He looks different. He talks different. He acts different. He got my attention. You know the lesson there? If you want to get people's attention, pay attention to who you're being. Pay attention to who you are. I'm not suggesting you go buy a new car or a new suit or anything. Just pay attention. So I know in your kind of business, there's a lot of activity where people will set up booths and they'll have hundreds of products on the booth and they'll stand in some fair or flea market or something all day long, and they'll like, here's my products, here's my products, here's my products. And they wonder why they're not building a 4-year career. It's because who you are being is not what other people want to do. So you want to look at the big picture, look beyond just here's my product, here's what my product will do, and I just happen to be standing behind this booth for 12 hours telling whoever will come by about my products, and I don't understand why nobody wants to sign up to sell them. It's because who you are is screaming louder than what you're saying, and who you are is standing behind a booth. Well, who Steve was, no matter what he said about money, was not somebody that I listened to about money or career advice or anything. But to wrap up the second point, post the 4-year college education policy, guess what I was all of a sudden? Open. I was open.
we go. There's the end of the MLM mindset course training videos.